Fraud Show, everybody. We've returned. We're all in the same room.
All in the same
for
room.
once.
Well, welcome back to Columbus.
Thank you.
Yeah.
The congregational city, because I don't think we're ever going to all meet in another city.
Probably not.
Probably not.
This week we are discussing the animation maestro,
Yep.
Don Bluth.
Mm-hmm.
A couple of his 80s films, both executive produced by Steven Spielberg.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yes, I saw.
Before he went on creative hard times.
Yeah. We're talking about The Land Before Time and An American Tale. One of which both John and I had seen before.
Yep.
And one of which we had not seen before, but they were flip-flops.
So
I'm not making a lot of sense here, but...
Well, we're going to be revisiting some.
Yes.
And experiencing others.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll see how this goes.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
I think we may have an interesting discussion, or it may just be a whole lot of shrugging. We'll see.
I don't know. I think I have a lot to talk about.
Okay.
So.
Okay.
Perhaps. I think I have more to talk about with one than the other, because one is just a little bit more interesting. But
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
first, of course, we will regale you with what we've been watching lately.
Ooh.
And Garrett, I pose the question to you.
What have I been watching? All right. This was, I think, about a week ago.
Yes, to regale us with the experience of it.
Yeah, about a week ago. I had the interesting occasion to see, I don't know who did it, but this was a Cartoon Network series that aired sometime in the 2010s called Over the Garden Wall.
Okay, I've never seen the show, but I did walk past the DVD several times when I worked at Barnes & Noble and was perpetually confused by it.
I have seen a single episode of it.
Okay. So, oh boy. All right. So this totals, there are only 10 episodes. It's about an hour and 20 minutes in total watch time. About. It probably should have been a movie, but the title cards are cute, I guess, because they have title cards in every episode, I guess. Where do we want? Okay, I guess we want to go from the beginning.
We don't have to go to the beginning, but
Introduce it. Set it up.
Okay.
So it starts with Wirt and his brother. I'm gonna say Roger, but I forget. I honestly forget.
The Cartoon Network thing of, okay, let's just pull a name out of a hat. Okay, that doesn't sound too weird. We'll go with it.
Yeah. So it's a tale of a boy and his younger brother. They are walking through a dark woods, and they are in the notorious, I think it's called Deepwood, or
one of them voiced by Elijah Wood.
Is that really?
Yeah.
Yes, that is true.
Yeah, that is true.
They're Wirt and Greg, according to
Wirt and Greg, that's it. Yeah. Does it say what the forest is? The Great Unknown or something? The Unknown?
Let me see. I can't find it.
That's fine. Okay. So they take a dive into a dark wood, and they're dressed very weird. One of them is dressed as, you learn, as a Civil War outfit, but doesn't quite look like it. And then the other has a teapot on his head, because why the fuck not? It's Cartoon Network.
Yeah.
All right. And then this is all the first episodes. This may ring a bell for you, John, maybe.
I have very little memory of the show, to be honest.
Okay. I'll speed up along. Okay. Basically, you dive into this kind of Nathaniel Hawthornian 1830s Great Awakening sort of purgatory world. It's so strange on how they sell it, and especially with the aesthetic of the world and of the world building. And you know that these two boys don't fit into the world, especially by how Greg talks. Because everyone's more old world, sort of like old world kind of feel.
We'll name a kid show where the main kid characters feel like they belong in that world. Because everyone has let's get a fucking 30-year-old to voice this 12-year-old or something. They all have that now, because apparently that's more appealing, I guess.
Except for Adventure Time.
Yeah. And then there comes an episode where you do learn that these kids are actually of a world that they actually belong into, but somehow they are in this Hawthornian nightmare. I say Hawthorne because, I don't know, just like pilgrims or something.
Do they ever escape from the Hawthornian nightmare? Do they ever explain the Hawthornian nightmare?
So it seems like how it's explained is that the Wirt and Greg, after a series of finagling and Wirt just messing up because he likes this girl, that sounds way too cliche, it is. They end up in a river for some reason, and then they're on the verge of death, and then they slip into this Hawthornian nightmare.
Okay.
And then it's by the last episode where they come out of that into the real world.
Okay, I'm going to rephrase this.
Sure.
Why should someone watch Over the Garden Wall?
Why should someone watch this?
Yes. Or why should someone not watch it, per se?
Probably why you shouldn't watch it is the internet and on all, like, because there are all these sort of, like, theories about this series that are, like, I honestly don't care. Like, there are a lot of theories about, like, are they in purgatory? Like, do they ever actually leave? Because there's a little, like, glimpse of, like, fogginess around the edges of the frame.
Yeah, well, that being said, I have yet to see an internet theory that isn't incredibly stupid, so...
You're also right. So, I mean, this is a pretty plain story of hero's journey spanned over 10 episodes. But it's a...
So it's something of a mini-series, then.
Yeah. It's a mini-series, and then you have a villain that is an opera singer, or sings opera, but he's dark shadows, and he looks like trees. And then, like, there's an old man with a lantern, and then it's a...
This all sounds intriguingly weird, but also quite plain at the same time.
Yeah. That's that sort of thing. Like, before I watched it, the people I watched it with were going, oh my god, you have to see this, oh my god, you have to see this! And then, like, I watch it, I'm like, okay, like, okay.
Well, okay, here I'm gonna say this,
and,
like...
It's like...
college kids are far more like regular kids than we realize. Like, they get enraptured by decent children's cartoons really easily, it seems.
Yeah.
I think that's my theory as why Adventure Time became such a huge phenomenon.
Perhaps.
Adventure Time is weird.
Yeah,
though.
yeah. Well, that's why college kids were watching it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
certainly.
Yeah. Although, like, this does deal with mature themes.
So you think it different? I sort of phrase that, like, Adventure Time is really weird, but also very infantile in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And Over the Garden Wall is not that, and you think that might be one of its draws?
I think this is very separate from, like, this is visually and thematically different from a lot of the other Cartoon Network material. I can't say that over, like, maybe some of the more recent ones, but I can say that, like, sort of like the aesthetic and sort of the themes that they go off of, especially like with resurrection and afterlife and purgatory.
Interesting.
That I don't think any other series goes off of.
Okay, I think it also must be known that, like, every kid show now, like, I think literally everything goes with, like, the bright colors, like, no shadowing, Adventure Time thing, and this doesn't do that.
This fucking absolutely does not.
And I think that is worth praise, to be honest, because I'm kind of getting sick of that no shadow thing.
Yeah, oh yeah. There are quite a bit of shadows.
So should we watch it?
I think it's definitely a interesting exercise in a hero's journey narrative, and you get some notions about animals and humans, even mainly because a lot of the animals are more personified or anthropogenic, sort of like in sort of like in BoJack Horseman, but in more. But again, in more of a 1830s type of way, except there are no people fucking dogs, so
yeah, okay,
or horses for that matter. So
okay,
I mean it's
all right.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's one of those kid shows that, like, college kids love. Okay.
Yeah.
I can live with this.
It sounds kind of interesting.
It does kind of sound intriguingly weird.
To check it out.
Although okay, so there is an episode where so it's the kids and then there's a talking bird, bluebird. Okay, Go with it. So they come upon this abandoned town, or they think it's abandoned, and then they go to a farm. And it's filled with all these, like, talking pumpkin people.
Okay.
And then they eventually learn that these are actually raised skeletons, but they just use pumpkins as flesh.
Okay. I can get behind that.
I'm into that.
That's actually kind of clever, like, horror setup, to be honest.
Except they don't really do a lot with that. That's just
Interesting.
one little snippet, and then they move
Okay.
on.
I don't know.
This does sound intriguing.
But
I've been largely on board with this kind of like new, like weirder direction for Cartoon Network shows.
yeah.
I mean, The Amazing World of Gumball is something that I always enjoy.
Oh no, yeah, that is a riotously good time sometimes.
Adventure Time, I'm less fond of, but it does still have some good moments.
What
at
about
least
the
of what
regular
I've seen.
show?
Regular show I liked a lot when I was younger. I've come to realize that show has kind of an element of like douchiness that I kind of can't get past, but
yeah.
although that show did have some like kind of fun surreality to it.
Yeah.
I think I've seen a little bit of it, and I think it's delightfully stupid in that sort of way.
It's very inconsequential.
Yeah.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah, but I think in a somewhat knowing way.
Yeah,
It's sort of a weird. There a lot of these things are kind of it's troubling to sometimes put your finger on them because like you're not entirely sure who the demographic is or kind of like what the direction is.
That's kind of with Over the Garden Wall.
Okay, because especially like we've seen to reach this like space of like kids television should be for everyone.
right.
And I'm not sure how actually true that is, but like that idea permeates through them.
It's yielded some pretty good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not against
So
that.
the Lego movie exists per se.
Yeah.
But is that all you've been watching?
I'm just gonna say no.
Okay then. I watched something that is quite possibly the opposite of that, which is Lynn Ramsey's We Need to Talk About Kevin.
Yeah. Not appropriate for all ages.
It is. There are very few people I think it's appropriate for, to be honest.
It's appropriate for all reads.
I'm not sure, to be honest. I'm not sure. I don't want to. This is the only thing I'm going to compare with Naked, which is that like it's quite unpleasant. But it has much more clarity than Naked.
It's unpleasant, but like in a way that feels more designed to like jolt you and hold your attention.
Yeah. Well, like Lynn Ramsey's just a better filmmaker, but that's beside the point. At least in that context. I don't want to.
I don't want to disparage Mike Lee.
No, neither do I. But the aesthetic of this movie is it is in some ways it's quite familiar because it's kind of got that like sort of high contrast, like kind of blown out windows kind of thing that you see a lot of time, but just the colors of it and the motifs hidden within it are just sumptuous and rapturous, and just some of the visual creations are quite unnerving, partially because they're just hidden within this not standard looking film, but sort of more conventional looking film. Like it's not entirely like bright colors and things of that variety.
The way she uses the color red is I won't say it's subtle, but it's very, very deliberate. Like, she doesn't like fill the frame with it the way that like Kieslowski or someone would.
There's an image in this film which I think it says a lot about the film, where is that like you see the titular Kevin's eye, and you see a dartboard taking up the pupil, and it's not subtle at all, but it is such a rapturous image that you just cannot help but be taken in by it.
Yeah.
But the plot of this movie, quite controversially, though people don't really talk about this movie, and I think they should.
Yeah, they don't really anymore. I mean, I did read like some reviews after I saw it, and like people were kind of debating back and forth. There were some people who just hated this movie.
Yeah, I can't say I blame them, but I don't quite see their point.
I can see why someone would, even if I don't agree with them.
Yeah, same here. But it's about a woman whose child, who is a deliberately nightmarish child, quite possibly the worst child to raise,
right?
And who eventually went on pretty much a school shooting. It's strangely enough, Lynn Ramsey uses bow and arrows for this killer's choice, which is almost campy were it be a different film.
Yeah. Even that's like,
you say it, and I think if you were to see that scene out of context, you might laugh.
Yes,
but like within the context of the movie, they have built it up in such a way that I think it totally works.
Yeah, I mostly agree. I kind of criticize. I think they should have just used a fucking gun.
Yeah,
but
probably.
Like that's especially you're already in America, Lynn Ramsey. Like we don't need to like go about this in any way.
I don't know if maybe it was like a budgetary thing
Potentially,
but
especially
I
like
don't
you
know.
never see the shooting
Right.
in full. It's just kind of
Yeah.
some setup, and we just see people be wheeled out. Like
Uh-huh.
we never see any violence enacted. We see the end results of
Right.
violence. And I think,
Yeah.
if anything, that's partially what's so brilliant about it, is because it never goes into titillation. It never becomes like, let us watch the spectacle of violence.
Right.
The only thing it ever does is it lets you feel the tension of violence, that unbearable fear of violence, and that is over every second of this film.
100%.
And it is fascinating.
Yeah. She's masterful about, like, just creating a profound sense of dread that just, like, hangs over the whole thing.
Like, you see this child, and, like, in a vacuum, this is not a fearful-looking child.
No.
It's a fucking, like 8-year-old, floppy hair, and so forth. But, like, the thematic value and, like, the framing and everything makes this child horrifying.
Yeah.
And you feel existential dread by looking at a fucking floppy-haired child.
It's haunting, man.
It is. And I don't really know what other film encapsulates fear in this way. And also, Tilda Swinton.
Yeah. So good in this movie.
Why is she not ruling the world?
I don't know.
In everything?
I think it's just because her sensibility hews to kind of, like, stranger projects that, you know, kind of keeps her out of the mainstream somewhat.
So are you saying, why isn't she like pushing the world onto this train so she can rule it by brute force?
I mean, that's preferable to what we have now, but no, not quite really.
Okay. It would be colder on Earth, though.
Yeah, well, I don't know, the Tilda Swinton affect in this, because especially it really works because this is explicitly framed as parentage by a parent who did not want to be a parent and was kind of pushed into it. And that's something that's reiterated over and over again. She's consistently punished by it. And this is someone who quite explicitly regrets having a child. Yeah. And I can't really think of that in another movie. I can't think of another movie about that. And it's deeply unpleasant and deeply reminisced about.
Oh yeah, this movie has, like, a lot of clarity that, like, Tilda Swinton is not the victim here. Like, she and Kevin kind of are, like, mutually encouraging and what's the word I'm looking for? Perpetuating each other's horribleness.
Yeah, but it's also, like, a lot of, like, Tilda Swinton's. I think that, like, framing of a sort of unexpected, sort of pushed into parentage makes it so Tilda Swinton is far more sympathetic, and you just sort of see it as, like, I didn't ask for this. Right. Why is this happening to me? Right. And I'm of the personal opinion, like, no one's ever to blame for a school shooting, other than the people who gave them the weapons, but that's besides the point. But that's beside the point. Like, I don't think there was a singular personage to blame. You see a lot of emotionality towards people wishing to find the central point to blame. That's a lot of where the conflict comes from. Yeah, no. I mean, this movie definitely, like, engages with that issue. Because, like, just the way that, like, all the townspeople treat her. Yeah. And kind of obviously blame her for what happened. You know, the way that is all interweaved into the movie. Yeah, which I thought was unrealistic. But, like, then I sort of looked up, like, there is right now people wishing for the heads of, like, parents. We very unfortunately at least when this is being filmed, I don't know when this is going to go out, but we are just in the aftermath of 2 very deadly school shootings. Yeah. And, like, you see some, like, it's sort of taken a political aspect from, like, the right wing saying, like, blame the parents, not guns. But I think that idea of these parents are to blame for this act, that is something that's been around for years. Especially you see, like, the parents of these children coming forward and, like, giving interviews. Like, there's, like, a recent interview by the parent of the Columbine kids giving interview. So this specter of let us blame the people who raised them. Yeah. Comes up, and this film actually never explicitly, but very much in the subtext engages with that conversation of who to blame, because this is a very unique. First of all, these are minors; these are technically children in the eyes of the law. These are parents that are never explicitly involved in the crime, but they have the sort of societal responsibility of raising the child, and we cannot help but think how much of this raising process created this. Like, we were always having the conversation of nature versus nurture. I think this film kind of leans on nature more than nurture. It seems to, but certainly the nurture element is there, and it is treated with, you know, the appropriate amount of kind of ambiguity. And I think just part of, like, this movie's brilliance is just, like, how Lynn Ramsey's able to balance all these things, and yet having it be this like wildly entertaining, wildly gripping thing to witness.
And also, I think that like this movie is like very subjective in terms of like what it's presenting.
Certainly, it is very much like an eye through the eyes of Tilda Swinton.
Yeah,
movie.
you kind of get the idea that she's kind of like looking back over her life and trying to figure out like how much she herself is to blame.
Yeah,
like
there's lots of like soft focus, harsh like lighting, sort of like the way she uses sound bridges is fascinating. Like that, the sound design of this movie is just wondrous, and like any film student should take a look at this to see how the new sound bridge is.
Yeah, she's great with sound. I mean, between this and also You Were Never Really Here.
Yeah, and I can't wait to see that now.
Oh yeah, incredible.
But yeah, we need to talk about Kevin. It's wondrous, and as I said in the group chat, depressingly, distressingly relevant.
Yeah.
And I guess I can't think of a movie that like it made me feel uncomfortable, but in a very honest way. It's not like Naked, where I'm just like, oh, this just isn't.
Yeah, no,
I just went, oh, this is Pablum. Whereas this is sort of it stays with you and it really does make you resonate.
Yeah, it's visceral and it's
that's a great way to put it.
Like I was, when I was watching it, I was just constantly like reacting, like leaning in and leaning back.
Like the point with the hamsters, one point, it was almost like the moment in The Fly where I'm just like, I just like leaned down like the laptop screen going, no.
Oh man. Oh god. Yeah, I'm thinking about that scene
exactly.
now.
Just like, oh, please, no.
Oh,
and
God.
like this movie goes places and it has the tact and it has the clarity to do them.
Yeah.
And there's just so much pablum out there that just simply doesn't. Like, it is one thing to say this movie is dark, therefore it is good. This movie understands its darkness and is able to present it in a brilliant way. Yeah. And that is as much a point of praise in anything else in the movie as, like, sound design or visuals or something of that sort.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Lynn Ramsey, I gotta see more of her movies. You were right, Tyler. I am glad to sit here and say your praise was worthy.
Yeah. I imagine you'd like her first two movies less, but I think this new phase that she's in, definitely see You Were Never Really Here.
Did she make anything before this and You Were Never Really Here?
Yeah, she had two movies earlier. Like I said, her career kind of actually breaks pretty neatly into like two halves. Her first two movies are Ratcatcher and Morven Caller. They're much more kind of the like verite kind of gritty realism sort of thing. I'm not sure you would enjoy those as much.
I'm typically against that. But, it's Lynn Ramsey.
Lots of well-observed moments in those movies, though. Anyway.
But, that's all I've been watching, per se.
Okay. Well, I have just a few things, so let me run these down pretty quickly. I saw the new film from Diablo Cody and Jason Reitman and Charlize Theron called Tully, which I liked a lot. I thought it was very, very good. Basically, Charlize Theron is playing a mother of two kids with a third on the way. The third child is born fairly early in the movie. Just kind of dealing with her like day-to-day kind of struggle. Like one of her kids has some kind of like emotional issues that are never quite specified. Like it's pretty explicit in the movie. Like they're not really sure like what's wrong with him. Like people repeatedly refer to him as like quirky, but they're not really sure like what exactly that means.
Quirky.
Right. And then Charlize Theron's rich brother wants to hire her night nanny as like a kind of baby shower present or something. Just someone who will like come and take care of the baby at night so that the parents can like actually sleep. And whatnot. Anyway, so she has the kid. She's resistant to the idea, but like Charlize Theron in this movie, she's so good. You can just like see the exhaustion in her face. It's like a very like she does a very good like kind of physical performance, like without necessarily saying a lot. You can just see it in her eyes, just how utterly exhausted she is. I think you kind of get. I think it's explicit that like this baby was like not planned. So
interesting.
Yeah, so you kind of get the sense that like maybe she's not totally happy with the direction her life is taken and whatever. But anyway, she hires the night nanny eventually. The night nanny's played by Mackenzie Davis. She shows up. Things get a bit strange. And I will say there's a twist in this movie that I kind of saw coming. And when it happened, I was kind of like, oh no, why are you doing this? This is so dumb. But then by the end of the movie, I had actually like come all the way around to like, oh no, actually like it works very well as like a character choice,
Okay.
like a way of illuminating Charlize Theron as a character, and like really making the whole movie just kind of snap into place. Like
Okay.
once you figure out like what the whole nature of like what has been happening is, like the whole thing just kind of clicked for me, and I was like, oh, I see what they were doing with the. Oh, okay, this was actually kind of brilliant.
Okay.
So yeah, I liked it a lot. I think it's really Diablo Cody's probably most mature script so far,
Okay.
at least out of the stuff that I've seen.
Alrighty.
Yeah, I like this movie a lot. It does feel a little bit maybe like, I don't know if Diablo Cody has kids. I feel like she doesn't. The movie felt kind of written from the perspective of like someone who doesn't have kids and doesn't want kids. But that doesn't really end up hurting it. I think it works pretty well. Anyway, that's that. I saw Robert Altman's Gosford Park,
Ooh.
which
When's the last time you've seen a Robert Altman movie?
I rewatched McCabe and Mrs. Miller for my Westerns class, so I've now seen that movie twice. On the rewatch, I don't think I talked about it, but on the rewatch, I liked that movie a lot.
Okay.
Even more than I did the first time. Like, I had remembered liking it, and then, like, the second time, I was like, oh, this is really good. So I think I want to see more of his movies. He has a lot of movies that people don't necessarily bring up a lot. I was kind of, like, trolling around on Amazon, and I found this, like, special edition Blu-ray of a movie he'd made in the 70s that I'd never even heard of. So, I'd be curious to check that out. Anyway, this movie came out in 2001. It was written by the guy who went on to create Downton Abbey, Julian Fellows, I believe is his name. Basically concerns a bunch of British aristocrats who are gathering at this person's kind of country house for an extended weekend party. The whole like setup of the movie is pretty much Rules of the Game.
Yeah, Rules of the Game.
Yeah, it's very much modeled on Rules of the Game. Like you see kind of the upper class contrasted with the servants. The characters all kind of interweaving in a very similar way. There's even like a hunting sequence that feels very much modeled off of Rules of the Game. Then, right in the middle of the movie, they twist in like a very fun Agatha Christie style murder mystery. And that kind of coupled with like the class themes and whatnot makes for a very fun and very interesting movie.
This kind of sounds like an idea for a movie I've had.
Yeah, it's great. I really, really liked it a lot. It kind of takes its time. Like the actual murder doesn't happen until like right around the halfway point. But kind of where it goes from there is really fun and interesting, and the characters are all very well drawn. And yeah, I liked it a lot. Great production design, great performances all around, a very sharp screenplay. I would highly recommend it.
Sounds great.
Then I also finally watched Steven Spielberg's Munich.
Ooh.
To kind of put a button on our Spielberg conversation from last week. I liked it. It's I'm still kind of maybe like sorting out my feelings on it, just because it's a strange beast of a movie.
Yeah, especially from Spielberg.
Yeah, especially from Spielberg. I mean, you know, the whole kind of setup, you know, it's based on the kind of Israeli revenge operation after the Munich massacre at the Olympic Games in the 70s. And I know this movie was pretty controversial in terms of just like the historical liberties it took and like the account that it was based on and whatnot. Eric Bana in the movie is like really an interesting performance. Like his character is very well drawn and kind of like interestingly you know, an interesting kind of moral center for the movie. He bounces nicely off of like Daniel Craig and some other figures in the movie who are kind of more like hard-lined in their desire for vengeance. You know, I was kind of watching it and I was kind of like, okay, like this is, it moves oddly fast. Like they get into kind of the revenge operation and then a lot of the movie is spent on that. And all those sequences I thought are very well done.
Like there's some like masterpieces of like suspense.
Yeah.
And, like, there's a scene in this movie of like them killing that woman.
Yeah.
With like why did they blow spikes into her, it seems, or something like
Yeah.
that. So, and I can't get that scene out of my head.
That scene is like so kind of crazy and like, again, like, kind of almost comes out of nowhere. Like, it feels like this movie kind of just moves from one thing to the next kind of, without really connecting them totally.
It drops shoes, but you're not sure why it drops them.
Yeah. Which was, it makes it a bit of a strange watch. I did like it. And, you know, I think there's a lot of really great filmmaking in it. Like, he shoots a lot of those scenes, like, kind of like a one of those like 70s like conspiracy thrillers,
Yeah.
like The Conversation or something.
Yeah,
like
that's
with a lot of
that's a very good comparison.
zooms and whatnot, and all that's kind of staging. I liked that aspect of it a
There's
lot.
a lot of good work of like reflections. in
Yeah,
the movie.
yeah. I do think that kind of as an allegory for like the response to 9/11, I think that also it works pretty well. It does get a
Yeah.
little muddled, but just because
Mm.
like I mean they do kind of hit it pretty hard, especially toward the end, where like
You
Eric
literally see-
Bana's yelling at Jeffrey Rush, like, tell me, like, oh, everyone we kill is just replaced by someone worse. It's
Yeah.
like, that's very easy to compare to, even though this movie came out way before this, like, easy to compare to ISIS and whatnot.
Yeah.
And then, obviously the two towers are framed
Yeah.
very, very prominently in the last shot.
Mhm.
I did like it, and for a 2-hour and 45-minute movie, I think it held my attention
It's
pretty
fun.
well, and
Yeah.
it really clips by pretty nicely.
Yeah, I really love this movie. I kind of actually really like the sort of vignette construction
Yeah,
of it, where it's kind of built like you're not quite. First of all, you're never quite sure what's going to happen next.
Yeah.
and there's a palpable tension of what's going on. Yes, also they're not quite sure what's going on next. So much of
Yeah.
what they're working on is sort of like word
Yeah.
of mouth and seeing where do we go next. Who do we get? Almost like an espionage thriller.
I can appreciate that.
Mhm.
The one thing I will kind of say is that I wish that there had been like a little more context at the beginning, just to kind of like
Yeah.
properly, because you're really just kind of thrown into it, and then like Golda Meir is there, and you're not really like introduced to her. And actually, I was watching this on a DVD that I got from the library, and Spielberg apparently felt that the need to put a special introduction on this movie.
Interesting.
Like, I hit play, and it was like, play movie or play with introduction by Steven Spielberg. And I'm like, well, okay, why not? And had he not like explained the whole Golden Mirror thing, I wouldn't have known like who she was or like what she was doing in that scene.
Oh yeah, she was Israeli Prime Minister.
Yeah.
At the
I looked that up and was kind of like, oh, okay. But like it's kind of, you're just kind of like thrown into it immediately without necessarily out of context. I just wish there had been just a little bit more in the setup. But I do kind of get like why he did it that way, just because like to kind of reflect like the way that, again, like these people were just kind of thrown into this and just operating off this list that they don't really know where it came from and whatever.
Yeah. Though I also think just Israel is a great metaphor for post 9/11 America.
It does work. It does work pretty
Yeah.
well. Yeah, I did like it quite a bit, and I think that there's a lot of really great Spielberg filmmaking in it.
Yeah, so I really love it. I'm really glad you saw it.
Yeah,
so
me too.
I would honestly recommend it that you read if you haven't seen it.
I have not seen it.
Well, I recommend it. It's the most brisk 2 hours and 45 minutes you're ever going to probably spend.
Other than The Life and Death of Colonel Blimp.
Well, of course.
Oh yes, yes. I was gonna say,
All right,
wait.
and then one last thing. I saw a Japanese movie by Kenji Mizoguchi, who is kind of a contemporary, but also kind of a predecessor to Kurosawa. I think Kurosawa kind of admired him, but this movie came out like a year before Seven Samurai. I think a lot of this guy's kind of like great works kind of came at the end of his career.
Okay.
Anyway, the movie I saw was called Ugetsu. It's kind of a story. Takes place during. It's a period piece. It takes place during some Japanese civil war in like the 16th century, I believe.
Would that be like the Senjoku Senjai?
I don't know.
I'm
It's
butchering that, by the way.
Never really totally made clear.
Or maybe the restoration of shogunate rule, perhaps.
Potentially, there's
or
a
the
lot
rise
of.
of Tokugawa shogunate, maybe.
I'm not sure. It's
Potentially.
it's not really important. Anyway,
there's a lot of turmoil, like pre-Meiji Restoration Japan.
Yeah.
Anyway, basically it concerns these like two villagers who are both kind of it really plays kind of like a fable in a lot of ways. Like they kind of yearn for fame and fortune. Like one of them just kind of wants to get rich, one of them wants to become a samurai. They both have wives that are kind of like, oh, like, whoa, I mean, we support you, but like, what, do you have to do this and whatnot? Both kind of embark on long wandering journeys, and there's kind of a supernatural element that comes in that didn't totally work for me, although I do think the movie works pretty well as a whole. And I did appreciate kind of how it ended up.
Yeah.
I think it kind of all comes to a head and resolves things. Well, not resolves things, but like comes to a nice, resonant conclusion and whatnot. There's some very good filmmaking in it. Wasn't like blown away, but I would recommend it. I think it's an interesting watch.
Okay.
Anyway, that's what I've been watching. So, shall we get to some Don Bluth movies here?
I would love to get to some Don Bluth movies.
All right. What do we want to talk about first? Should we...
Reed, did you see both of them? It takes less time to watch both of these than it does to watch Munich.
It does, actually.
Or actually, I think either of the Spielberg movies we watched last week, to be honest.
Yeah, well, let me see that. Hour 20 plus an hour 9. 2 hours 29. Yeah, pretty close. Well, it would just be a little bit longer than Minority Report. Anyway, do you want to start with An American Tale? That came first.
I would love to talk about it.
Let's talk about An American Tale.
Yeah. So, basically,
I can't blame you. The movie did that. Yeah.
Russian mice.
Mm-hmm. Jewish Russian mice,
yes. The Mouskowitz family are living in Russia, kind of yearning for a better life in America. Yeah. They are attacked by a Cossack of cats.
A Cossack of cat. Like, this is a kid's movie that starts with Russian pogroms against the Jewish people.
Right.
And, like, where the fuck else were you going to see that in the 1980s?
Sort of... And this is true throughout the movie. That is sort of that there's a sense of parallelism between like the people and then the mice that live.
Yeah. There's also this movie also takes like the really interesting approach that like the people are always rotoscoped and they're always like juxtaposed with these sort of almost Chuck Jones like designs.
Yeah. Sort of.
I think sort of Don Bluth kind of sits in like a land between like classic Disney and like Chuck Jones.
The earlier Chuck Jones stuff.
Not like the super sketchy stuff.
But like, so anyway, they leave and emigrate to America. They end up in New York City, 1885. And of course, Fievel, the kind of main character, is separated from his family.
Mouskowitz.
I assume many people would probably be familiar with this movie. I just had somehow missed it.
Yeah, it's kind of it has like it has like that god awful like Fievel Goes West like sequel that people saw, and
I've never seen that either. But
neither have I.
Anyway, so this movie has a lot of really interesting stuff to it. I had read that Spielberg was pretty heavily involved in kind of the development and the production. Mm-hmm. He brought a lot of kind of personal stuff to it, like from his kind of family history.
Oh, interesting.
Like he was himself Jewish. Like the scene where like Fievel is kind of standing at the window, like looking at the school children inside. Apparently, that was based on something that Spielberg's grandfather told him about.
Oh, interesting.
And so, all that stuff, I think, works pretty well. And I think, like you said, I think we were talking about this, like, it feels like a pretty authentic, like, immigrant experience kind of movie.
This fucking nails the American immigrant experience right down to Tammany Hall and discrimination and like,
the orphanage.
And why they're there. This movie very explicitly says, like, these people are fleeing persecution from Russian authorities.
Right.
These are refugees.
No cats in America.
There's no cats in America. You have the flamboyant Italian stereotype saying about how he fled Sicily to get away from the mob, and like that is all just so interesting for me in an 80s kids movie.
The streets are paved with cheese.
Anyways.
Yes. So okay, this movie, lots of stuff about it I liked.
Mm-hmm.
It is shaggy, like in the way that like those early Disney movies are kind of shaggy.
Yeah, well, there's a lot in this. There's quite a few things in this movie where I feel like this is only there because Don Bluth thought it would be cool to animate. Like there's a point in the movie where like the ship is swaying from side to side, and you have like mice.
The wave monsters.
Yeah, the wave monsters, and like you have like there's like a point where this is a really small thing, but it kind of stuck with me where like a checkers board is being played.
I appreciated that.
And I like that too.
Yeah,
that's what
the checkers board sliding between the two mice across the water.
And there's a lot of like kind of surreality, sort of like a mixing between like rotoscoping and like very cartoonish styles. There's a lot of interesting animation in this, and a lot of explosive animation as well, where you kind of feel like, oh my god, this came before like CGI and so forth. This is all handmade.
Although there was also a point in like the middle with Fievel's hat So like I kept noticing in the animation that like he would lose his hat. It's like oh shit, he lost his hat. No, wait, it's back.
It's
wait,
always it always like magically reappears.
Wait, what? So it's like
well, it is interesting in both of these movies. Like there's a weird kind of like almost. Like, the thing with, like, the older Disney movies, especially, is, like, those movies, like, always feel like they're paying, like, very close attention to, like, space and, like, scale.
Yeah.
With these movies, that is not the case. Like, like, the Warren T. Rat character.
Oh, yeah.
Who is apparently, who you later find out is secretly a cat pretending to be a rat.
And
he, like...
changes proportions.
He jumps in size, like, on a scale of 2, like, between, like, when you first see him and when he is revealed to be a cat.
Yeah. I don't know.
Although
oh, sorry, what you gonna say?
There's a number between the vegetarian cat and 5L, which is really interesting on, like, how they play with scale. And sort of like the funhouse mirror.
I did like kind of that,
the
tricks they do with that.
I actually really admire, like, the idea, like, things are never quite always the same size. Like, and this is something that's also shared with Land Before Time.
Land Before Time, yeah.
Yeah, whereas, like, it's always from, like, a child's point of view. We are looking at, like, the immigrants' New York from a 5-year-old's perspective at most.
Sure.
And, like, a 5-year-old is always going to be, like, super subjective. Like, things are always changing. Things are never quite concrete. Like, because they're too young to understand like these things.
I can appreciate that. I think that would hit harder if they confined that to, like, the set design and stuff.
Yeah.
And weren't have characters, like, rapidly changing
the Warren T.
sizes.
Rat stuff is really weird.
Yeah, like, the whole, like, the Dom DeLuise cat and Fievel kind of musical number. Like,
that's really fun.
That stuff works fine, because, they're playing with the Funhouse music and whatnot. Although, I will say about that song, they do this whole elaborate, like, production number to kind of build up this relationship, which is immediately, like, dissolved. He helps the family find Fievel at the end of the movie, and I'm kind of like, okay, what was the point of that?
Was Dom DeLuise just, like, contracted a song in this thing?
I don't know. I don't know.
There's kind of a lot of this of, like, we're just, like, writing. Shit, we haven't had a song yet. What can we do? Shit.
And then
we have giant Dom
shit.
DeLuise.
And then just added
okay, shit, we have this giant Dom DeLuise cat. What if we make him, like, a vegetarian and he's read the Brothers Cameras? Okay, yeah, we'll do that.
5-year-olds don't even read that. I tried reading that on several occasions, and I still haven't finished.
Well, again, that's kind of what I'm talking about. Like, with this movie. It feels like disjointed in a lot of kind of weird ways.
But also in a quite modern way too. Like, there's a lot of, like, these blockbusters that come out, and you just feel like, good God, was anyone pay attention? Like, there's just some stuff that, like, just come in and come out, and but, like, this kind of has a scruffiness about it that, like, modern productions just don't.
Especially with the with 5L and then the sister having that musical number that makes you want to. That kind of sounds like nails on a chalkboard.
Yeah.
I will say,
but very beautiful nails.
It was hard for me to take that song seriously because the first time I experienced it was in an episode of Community where Donald Glover and Danny Pudi are singing it to each other, and so
well, it's very easy to mock with, like, the giant moon and, like, them, like, being juxtaposed.
Yeah. So anyway, again, lots of stuff about this movie that I did like. A lot of kind of very clever touches and whatnot. I did find its shtick kind of, like, wearing a little bit thin after a while.
I don't know. I really liked this movie.
I didn't dislike it. I do. There again. Yeah. I did enjoy it.
I don't know. Like, part of it just taking, like, I think it just has, like, a really convincing world, to be honest. Like, this kind of, like, cartoonish yet also quite downtrodden and gritty New York they're in. I think it's just, like, really fascinating to watch, and, like, it doesn't sugarcoat things.
Yeah,
and
I do appreciate that.
It just doesn't sugarcoat things. I'm just kind of like, I really admire that, and I'm really taken in by that. And there's just I think there's just a scrap. It's weird to say this about, like, an animation master like Don Bluth, like, being backed by Spielberg, one of the, like, cinematic Titanics.
Yeah,
I kind of look at this and I go, like, this feels kind of scruffy and charming and kind of rough around the edges in like a very I think a very charming way. I think it's a very charming movie.
Well, he was never working with like the kind of the budgets that Disney had.
No, he never had Disney money.
Yeah,
though
so
honestly, he'd sometimes look better than Disney.
I can see like where it's coming from.
Yeah,
I do think that like in terms of like kind of. And I think he was kind of very explicit about this, like trying to harken back to like an earlier era of kind of animation.
Like especially like Oliver and Company was the kind of thing that like Disney was doing at the time.
Sure. Although I do also think that like kind of the Renaissance like Disney movies that followed kind of, I don't know. I mean, we kind of rag on Disney a lot, and I do think like the Disney sheen is something that's easy to kind of criticize and mock. And I think there is a lot to be said for the way this movie's kind of darkness and the way it, like you say, doesn't sugarcoat anything. I do appreciate all of that. I do think that, like, I'm not prepared to say this movie's, like, worse than, something like The Jungle Book. But I don't know. I found myself enjoying it less, maybe just because, like, I didn't grow up with it.
Okay, interesting. Well, I didn't really grow up with it either, to be brutally honest. I'm just saying that, like, compared to those Disney Renaissance movies, like, this has, like, way more meaning than any of those combined could actually have. Not by those really movies' flaws, just by their construction. Like, they're made to be, these, they're flighty fairy tale, like, Disney things.
Those movies are very much working in kind of, like, a classical kind of Hollywood mode, where they're
this has way more
designed to be, like, enjoyed by all ages. And this has kind of more mature things on its mind.
Yeah, and I can't help but admire that and kind of fall in love with that.
Again, I do appreciate that.
Yeah.
But I do think that, like, when I'm kind of looking at, like, kids' movies and, animated movies, I tend to go more for, like, the more solid kind of story construction.
Yeah, it is
which is something that Disney was better at.
Yeah, you're right. From just, like, a pure construction standpoint, yeah, you're right. These things, I can't help but I've never watched Don Bluth that didn't feel somewhat disjointed in some way, and you kind of get, and like, especially the way they were made, they're just kind of like these seat-of-your-pants constructions a lot of the time, where they just kind of flung things together.
Like, Secret of NIMH, I think, feels pretty cohesive. Like,
it's more cohesive, but, like, you sort of sometimes tell that, like, this is just something that, like, the people were mortgaging their homes and, like, working on the midnight oil.
Yeah. Again, like, I'm not gonna, like, I don't want to dismiss this movie, because I do think there's a lot of value in it, and I think it's a really cool, like, thing to see. Just, like, someone kind of engaging with American history in this way. Like, that's all really cool.
I also I really like the Bluth style. I think it's just a fun, like, really cartoonish thing to watch.
Yeah.
It is quite cartoonish.
Yeah, more cartoonish than you might think. Like, you think, like Don Bluth presents the immigrant experience, but there's a lot of, like, fucking, like, 1950s Cinderella, like, mice antics in this.
Yeah.
But I think especially
weave far more better into it.
Yeah.
But so, like, I really like this movie. I think there's a lot to admire in it, and like, and I'd argue its scruffiness and kind of like disjointedness lends it a charm that a lot of Disney movies don't have.
I might agree with you, but I don't know. I just kind of prefer the more rigid approach.
I understand. Like,
I did like the wraparound with the Great Mouse of Minsk.
Well, that just looks like this gorgeous thing where I'm like, oh my god, how much time did they spend on this?
Yeah.
That was a nice. Yeah. That was probably the crowning moment of the movie.
So you were just kind of like on it.
Yeah, I was a bit.
Well,
but, I mean, I did not hate this movie.
I think it's a very hard movie to truly hate. Yeah, like, especially it's so sincere and just so, and it sometimes they just pour schmaltz on you at the end.
I mean, I think this makes a good kids movie.
Oh yeah, well, it is a kid. Sure. These two movies are kids movies far more explicitly than just about anything we've watched on the podcast.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
And I don't think that's a pejorative per se.
No, unlike again, this movie is actually kind of weird. Maybe that's something else that kind of. Not rubbed me the wrong way, but like was a little bit of a dissonant kind of thing where it's like you have these very mature like themes brushing up against some very, very like kind of juvenile stuff.
Yeah, it's almost like Chuck Jones style, like I said.
Yeah. Well, but not even that. Just like kind of the schmaltz of like somewhere out there.
Or kind of like over the garden wall.
Interesting. This actually goes very well into The Land Before Time. So do you want to talk about that now?
Do you have anything else to say, Garrett?
Go watch it with children.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just think like these are movies that like are explicitly kids films, but have like an underlying maturity that just a lot of kids entertainment just doesn't have anymore, and sometimes just refuses to have. Like, compare it to something like the fucking like Lego Batman movie, which is just like exploding with like little baubles everywhere, just every single second. There's always like lines of dialogue. There's always things being said. Something like The Land Before Time looks like 2001: A Space Odyssey compared to that. Like,
Yeah.
and like I admire that. Like, this movie does not like flash baubles in front of your face.
No.
It doesn't treat you like you have the attention span of a 3-year-old.
No.
It just presents like, here is like, sometimes it almost looks like Fantasia, like presenting like this sort of like stilted like natural world.
Well, I guess that kind of makes sense, because, you know, you have to make 19 more movies.
Well,
How
okay.
many fucking movies?
All of those were
No.
produced without the involvement of Don Bluth or Steven Spielberg.
Okay.
And Don Bluth has very explicitly said, "I hate everyone." About
That's fair.
I had one of those on VHS when I was younger.
Well, they're always on fucking TV.
I think I had the 6th or 7th one. Who cares?
Like,
But
those fucking things were always on TV
Yeah.
somewhere.
yeah, we don't need to talk about that.
No, but
Regardless, yeah, this movie. This is another movie though. I watched this. It was one that like my grandparents had, so I would like watch it all the time when I went over there.
okay.
Had not seen it in many years.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when I was a kid, I think most kids kind of go through the whole dinosaur phase.
Yeah,
I mean,
everyone loves dinosaurs.
I was always very interested in that.
I wasn't.
Really?
I mean, I never had a dinosaur phase per se, but
Okay.
but who doesn't like dinosaurs?
Yeah,
they're just cool.
I was very into it for like a while.
Yeah.
When I was younger, and then kind of when I got a little bit older, I kind of went through a second kind of
Yeah,
thing.
yeah. Just like with me and trains.
Yeah. That's something I talk about actually a lot, is like kind of how much I did love dinosaurs when I was kind of a kid.
Yeah.
But anyway, this movie, pretty straightforward. You have this young dinosaur, Littlefoot, who is his mother is there's a famine, and they have to go to the Great Valley. Which
Fucking volcanoes are exploding
Yeah,
everywhere.
right.
It's like the end times,
Right.
vaguey.
So they're progressing on this journey to go find kind of the more lush and green part of the landscape, and his mother is killed by a T-Rex, and he has to kind of embark on this journey by himself. He kind of assembles this group of fellow kind of lone
that sometimes
young
just
dinosaurs.
literally fall onto their laps.
Yeah, they all kind of end up together by happenstance for the most part. This movie, a lot of great like artistry in
Oh my
it.
God,
the
it's
animation
gorgeous.
is beautiful. Yeah, just so much great stuff. That scene where kind of Littlefoot is like talking to his mother like as she's dying is
Like, that is
beautifully animated.
Oh,
The
yeah.
score is incredible in this movie.
The James Horner music, good God.
Yeah, amazing.
I will argue, like, those like first 20 minutes, like until right after the mother dies, incredible.
Yeah.
I think that is just like this sumptuous, like almost like quasi Fantasia experience of
Right.
like just watching sort of dinosaurs interact, and something of a. I talked about this kind of a little bit in The Falling Idol, this idea of like everyone's wearing kid gloves. Like everyone's like, we see kind of everything through this stilted child's perspective.
Yeah.
Like it's never called the sun. It's never called trees.
Yeah, right,
You can never
right.
call them leaves.
Yeah.
Like things of that sort.
It's the bright circle. I mean,
Tree stars.
Yeah. Now, okay. Here's where you kind of I kind of like ran into a block with this movie.
Yeah.
I mean, like, you bring up Fantasia. I wish it had been more something in that vein.
I agree with you.
Like, I wish like there was a plan at first to make this movie without dialogue.
Yeah.
I would have loved to have seen that version of the movie.
Yeah,
I'm not sure. Maybe I wouldn't have liked it as much when I was younger if it had been that way.
Yeah.
But I also think it would be a better movie.
I can't disagree with that per se.
Like,
I
I
would
just
like
think-
it better if it were more Fantasia.
For all this movie is like great artistry, and to be clear, again, gorgeous, lots of great, just kind of artistic, stuff in this movie. After a certain point, it just gets like extremely cutesy.
Yeah.
and
This movie has a lot in common with Bambi, weirdly enough.
yeah. Well, That's odd because Bambi is so often like held up. Now I haven't seen Bambi in years.
I think I've seen. I saw
not
Bambi
seen
last
Bambi.
time.
Oh really? That might be
a good thing to explore.
Yeah,
we
we might
could
be-
do like a classic Disney episode.
I might be down for that.
Okay.
There's a lot of kind of stuff I haven't watched at all or in a while.
Yeah.
I don't know. Bambi was never one I watched a lot, but
Mhm.
but Bambi's one that's kind of held up a lot. It's kind of one of like Disney's like crowning achievements. And I don't know, just with this movie, yeah, like after a while, like yes, like I would show this movie to kids like in a second.
Yeah.
As you know, kind of an adult watching
Yeah.
it kind of wears pretty
You
thin,
just kind
pretty
of
quick.
like, oh my god. I don't know. I do admire like the kid characters actually act like kids.
Yes.
They don't feel like cardboard cutout. I can't say it's the most watchable thing for
Mhm.
someone my age, but they feel like kids.
Yeah.
They get depressed. They
Mhm.
get like get like overjoyed. They fight. They
Yeah.
have misunderstandings. Like they are kids.
Right.
And it doesn't really, and like again, like it doesn't really sugarcoat that, and like
Right.
especially like when after like Littlefoot's mother dies, like that isn't sugarcoated at all. Like
Oh,
especially
no.
we have a conversation after the death where like somebody says like it's not your fault,
Yeah.
like it wasn't anyone's fault. These things just kind of happen. I'm like, holy shit, this is like an '80s kids movie.
Yeah,
Jesus.
yeah. I do appreciate that sort of
Mhm.
thing. Would show this to kids like in a second.
Yes.
But like I don't know, just as it keeps going, it's kind of like okay, like I don't know. It just get like again very cute. This movie, like
yes,
the whole thing with
rigorously
like I
cute.
do appreciate the whole kind of conceit of like yeah they don't call anything by like its proper
Mhm.
name.
Yeah,
Like,
but after a while, it
after
does
a while,
kinda-
like I'm like, okay, Tree Star, like you're kind of reaching here, Don Bluth. Like the bright circle is like kind of the one thing that like totally unequivocally like works
yeah,
for me.
yeah.
there.
Everything else, I'm just kind of like, did you have a better name?
Yeah, right, exactly, exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
This is hardly a perfect movie, and I think it's much less watchable per se for our idea than an American Tale. But it doesn't talk down the children.
No.
It doesn't feel like it needs to be like wildly paced, like
Uh-huh.
rip roaring action. It just sometimes lets itself be like sort of like let's take in these environments, let's
Mhm.
take in
Yeah,
these
no,
sort of
there's-
things. Let's let children act like children.
Yeah, there's a lot of value in its simplicity.
Mm-hmm.
And again, yeah, I think it works very well kind of as a mature kids movie,
Mm-hmm.
but like doesn't quite work for all ages in the same way.
No,
that,
like it is
some other
not
stuff does.
Fantasia.
No,
No.
no, certainly not.
It's not even really an American Tale or
Yeah.
by that standard.
Not an American Tale, like not even like something like, you know, Beauty and
Mhm.
the Beast, which can just be
Uh-huh.
like enjoyed by everybody
Yeah.
equally. Like to
It's
me,
obviously the animated version.
yeah, that obviously,
Well,
yeah.
Jesus Christ, sure.
Anyway, I again, like, I think
Mhm.
there's a lot of value kind of in its simplicity, in its
Mhm.
straightforwardness. It's not the most engaging watch for me.
Yeah, I think it does have like some like emotional heft, even for like someone
Yeah,
my
yeah,
age.
yeah.
I think there are. I think Don Bluth knows how to fucking like rip open your heart and play on it like a fucking guitar.
Sure.
Yeah.
But I think you are right. It does just get. I think it does get like too cutesy and like
Mhm.
riled up and like cartoonish.
Again, like,
antics.
I don't know, like, the whole thing with, like, the ensemble, like, pretty well constructed. Like, I think, like, Littlefoot and Sarah, like, that dynamic works
Mhm.
pretty well.
I think everyone kind of gets an arc. per
Yeah,
se.
yeah, everyone, they do kind of build in a nice little
Mhm.
arc. I just think that, like, in putting together kind of an ensemble, you have, like, the one character, like, Ducky, like, if you had, like, one of those characters, like, that's fine.
Yeah.
When you put in the pterodactyl character
Yeah.
also, he really grated on my
I'm
nerves
just
after
like,
a
I'm like,
while.
oh god,
Like,
please,
him
please.
kind of, like, speaking his weird kind of, like, broken toddler English, I was kind of like,
Yeah.
I don't know about this.
You're not, especially like after the Fantasia movie you just saw in the first 20 minutes, you're just
Uh-huh.
like, what is this?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's again like oddly like scruffy and kind of rough around the edges, even for as simple as it is.
Uh-huh.
So like there's a lot of probably like I'm not too sure what like Don Bluth's mentality for kids entertainment is, to be honest.
I heard a lot of stuff, or I've read that like a lot of stuff got cut out of this movie. Also, like they
Well,
trimmed.
it's really short.
They trimmed stuff that like they thought would be kind of too intense for kids. Like
What?
there was more kind of
No.
peril and like and
Mm.
whatnot. I don't know. I would be curious to see it with that stuff kind of reinstated.
Yeah. Well, that being said, I can't really imagine like any kid like watching the Littlefoot mother's Littlefoot's mother dying scene and not just by like just bawling out. Or
I
something like
don't
that.
know. I did. When I was a kid, I just didn't really understand what was going on.
Yeah, like I can't. I'm just like, oh my god, Jesus,
Yeah.
Mr. Bluth.
Yeah. So,
But I can't like unequivocally recommend it for like people our age, but I think
Yeah.
it has a lot of values and admirations attached.
yeah. Again, like I don't want to sound like a broken record, but like
No.
for kids, I think this is a great movie.
Yeah, and it is a kids movie,
Yeah.
very explicitly, and I can't really treat that as a pejorative.
Yeah.
Like especially compared to like what we would call a kids movie now.
Yeah.
Which is
I
like
would agree with
flashing
that.
baubles, nothing means anything, just
Yeah.
quick, diverse, like some things mean things.
I mean, I do think this actually kind of comes back around to something we were kind of talking about earlier with like Cartoon Network shows. I think that
Yeah.
like we've kind of hit this point with culture where like everyone's trying to make kind of kids, especially like animated
Mhm.
movies and shows, kind of a broadly appeal to everybody,
Mhm.
like something that parents can enjoy like on another level. And again, I do see a lot of value in that approach,
Yeah.
but there is also value in just making a movie that is geared toward kids and like treats kids like with, you know, a lot of respect and
with
maturity.
maturity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I again, yeah, there's a lot of value in that.
okay then. So I think
So I don't want to dismiss either of these movies. Just
no.
again, like
I-
as an adult,
I really like one of these movies.
as an adult watching them, it's a little bit less fulfilling. But I think that, you know, when I have kids, if I have kids, I
Mhm.
would probably show them both of these movies.
If I ever need to explain the American immigrant experience to a child, An American Tale does a
Yeah.
really fucking good job.
Yeah.
If my The Land Before Time explains death really well.
Yeah.
So here we are.
Yep. All right. So that closes the book on Don Bluth week.
Mm-hmm.
What do we want to do next time? Oh,
Do we actually want to do Classic Disney Week? Or
I
do we want to
would-
put that on the back?
I would like to do that at some point, but I think timeliness,
Oh my god.
Oh.
because this weekend Lawrence of Arabia is playing, and if we're gonna do this,
We
got to do it now.
Yeah.
All right.
What day is it playing?
Well, it's only playing in LA, but
Oh, okay.
I mean, you will have to kind of fend for yourself.
Yeah,
but,
yeah. Oh, we have the internet.
yeah.
I'm just gonna have to like to say like, okay, Brenna,
I can watch
these
it with
four,
you.
you can, but I'm just gonna tell Brenna as well, like, okay, Brenna, we're just gonna have to knock these 4 hours out of our schedule. I'm gonna watch a
Wait.
movie.
So
Anyways.
we're gonna do this.
Yes,
David
I want to do
Lean's
this.
Lawrence of Arabia. Now, I do have an idea. Bear with me here. I know that obviously pairing this with anything might be
Is-
asking a lot,
Yeah.
That is asking a lot.
but David Lean's movie Brief Encounter is
Is it brief?
85 minutes long.
Oh,
So if you can squeeze it in,
I cannot make any promises.
I can't
but
make any-
like
promise.
totally understand if you
Yeah.
can't, but if we wanted to try,
I can try that.
okay,
I
all
can
right,
try that.
just to have something else.
So the much anticipated for me,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lawrence of Arabia and Brief Encounter.
Yeah, if you can swing it.
But I'm excited because I don't think I've ever seen a David Lean movie.
Oh my god!
I don't think I ever have either.
I'm sorry, his
No, I mean
movies are 4
I
hours.
understand.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I mean, his shortest major work is
Like, it was like
is-
3.5 hours or something.
Well, no, Bridge on the River Kwai is like 240.
Okay.
I think you would like that movie a lot.
Oh,
But
I readily approach it.
anyway, so this is very exciting for me because Lawrence of Arabia is one of my favorite movies ever.
I've
And
heard nothing but great things about it. I'm very excited for it.
I have not seen it in several years. I'm going to be interested to kind of look at it with a fresh perspective. Yeah, David Lean, you know, I saw Dr. Zhivago again recently and was kind of entranced by it. I think that movie is far from perfect, but there's a lot of just
I
masterful...
would love to see Dr. Zhivago one
Yeah.
day.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, because with that movie, I've only seen maybe the first half an hour, and I'm eager to.
Yeah, Tyler, I can't guarantee that we won't like try to split Lawrence of Arabia into 2 parts.
do
or
whatever you
something.
have to do. There
Yeah.
is an intermission, so if you have to do
Oh,
it...
interesting. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah, so, all right. So, David Lean, Lawrence of Arabia, possibly Brief Encounter, coming your way. This is very exciting for me.
I'm very excited too.
Yeah, this is gonna finally be
Ooh.
conquering one of those mountains. Watching all of his kind of 3 epics, like kind of one after the other, like not in a row, but
Mhm.
like within close proximity of each other. That was
Yeah.
kind of one of the great
Yeah.
film watching experiences of my life. So
Hmm.
I'm very interested to see how you guys will react to this.
Yeah. I'm no expert per se, but I know a little bit about Ottoman history.
Yeah.
So I think this will be a very interesting thing to put in historical perspective for me.
I also know a sliver of Ottoman history.
Okay.
So
There
All
we
right.
are.
maybe
Well,
this can work.
And also British history.
it all comes into play.
Yeah.
Psych.
All right. Thank you all for joining us.
Thank you for coming with us on
Yes.
this child's adventure.
Yes.
This
Also,
childish endeavor.
Including a Lynn Ramsey movie.
Oh yeah.
We run the gamut on this show.
Yep.
All right. Thank you all. We'll see you next time.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Night noises.
Night noises.
Fuck
per
you,
se.
night noises. Go to sleep. Anyways.
They're night noises. They are sleep.
Okay.
It's almost
Yeah.
close to the streets are paved with donuts, which is an actual fact if you're listening from outside the United States. Yes, the streets in America are paved with donuts.
Is that a John Oliver joke?
That's actually not a John Oliver.
Oh,
joke.
interesting.
I diversify my humor, you fucko.
Okay. I apologize for my assumption. But